I never thought the last gift my mother left me would be a warning. But those 6 words, "Be careful who you call family," echoed louder than any goodbye. At the time, I didn't understand. Now, I wish I had listened sooner. What happened after she died changed everything. Let me tell you what they tried to take from me. The last conversation I ever had with my mother ended with 6 words I didn't understand at the time. "Be careful who you call family." She said it gently, smoothing the blanket on her hospice bed, her fingers trembling from chemo, her voice thin but sharp like a cracked bell. I chalked it up to the meds. The exhaustion. The morphine haze. I never imagined she was warning me. My name is Camille Hartley, and I'm 39 years old. 1 week ago, I found out my half-brother, Eric, sold the house I inherited from our mother without telling me. We'd grown up in that house on the edge of Ashford, Oregon, a pale yellow colonial with faded green shutters, a stubborn pine tree that scraped the second-story window, and a porch swing where Mom used to read to us during long, rainy afternoons. When our dad left, that house became her sanctuary. When she passed away last month, I thought she'd passed it on to me. I was wrong. Or maybe I just hadn't been paying attention. It started with a phone call. "Hi, this is Michael Avery from Timberline Realty. Just confirming you've vacated the property at 1146 Maple Ridge Road. The buyers will be moving in on Tuesday." I nearly dropped my coffee. "Excuse me? I haven't sold anything." A pause. "You're Camille Hartley, correct?" "Yes." Another pause. "I have a signed agreement from a Mr. Eric Hartley." He indicated he was the sole inheritor. My stomach dropped. Eric, my older half-brother. We both inherited that house. That much I remembered clearly from the will reading. "You may want to speak with your attorney," Michael said awkwardly. I didn't answer. I just hung up and drove straight to Eric's place fuming. He lived in a renovated loft downtown, way more expensive than what he could normally afford. He answered the door like he'd been expecting me. Still had that smirk I hated. The one that made every lie sound like a joke. "You sold Mom's house?" I asked, already shaking. He shrugged. "You're welcome. You couldn't handle the upkeep. I figured you'd be relieved." "You didn't even tell me," I snapped. He leaned casually against the doorframe. "You were always more into her memory than the actual place." I needed the money. "I deserve it more. I deserve it more." I didn't even respond. I just turned and walked away, my fists clenched so tightly my nails left crescent moons in my palms. By the time I got home, I was already dialing Margot Sloan, Mom's estate attorney. I hadn't looked too closely at the documents when Mom died. Grief has a way of muting everything. But now I needed clarity. Margot met me the next morning in her cozy office above a bookstore on Main Street. She wore pale blue, as always, and her voice was calm in a way that made bad news sound like weather forecasts. "I'm sorry, Camille," she said. "I assumed Eric would wait until the probate was finalized." "He didn't wait," I said flatly. "He sold it." She frowned. "That's interesting." "What?" Margot pulled out a thick envelope from a file drawer labeled Last Will and Testament, Marion Hartley. She flipped a few pages and pointed at a paragraph I hadn't noticed before. "The property located at 1146 Maple Ridge Road is to be inherited jointly by Camille and Eric Hartley. However, the house may not be sold or transferred without the written consent of both heirs." I blinked. "He sold it anyway." Margot nodded, her tone sharpening. "Then the sale is invalid. And if the buyer wasn't informed of this clause? That may be fraud." A strange mix of fury and satisfaction burned through me. "So, I can get it back?" She looked me in the eye. "Yes. And if I were your brother, I'd be very nervous." "Camille," Margot said, flipping through the will with delicate fingers, "your mother included a clause in the fine print. It wasn't highlighted because, frankly, I never expected it would matter." She stopped at a paragraph midway down page 7 and slid the document toward me. I leaned in. "The property located at 1146 Maple Ridge Road is to be inherited jointly by Camille and Eric Hartley. The property may not be sold, transferred, or leveraged in any form without the explicit written consent of both heirs. Any such action will be considered legally void." I read it twice, heart pounding louder with each word. "He sold it anyway," I whispered, the paper trembling in my hands. Margot folded her hands. "Then the sale isn't legal. And if the buyer wasn't informed of that clause, your brother may have committed misrepresentation or outright fraud." I felt a cold weight settle beneath my ribcage. But beneath it, something else. Fire. "So I can take it back?" She nodded, her tone grim. "You absolutely can. And if I were Eric, I'd be sweating right now." He overlooked the wrong detail. I didn't even wait to schedule a follow-up. Within the hour I was driving through Ashford, gravel crunching under my tires as I turned onto Maple Ridge Road. There it was, Mom's house, my house, standing under a gray sky with its sold sticker plastered across the realty sign like a brand. The porch still creaked in the wind. But now it was littered with boxes. And then I saw it, a moving truck idling out front, half unloaded, men hauling furniture inside like they belonged there. They didn't. I pulled up hard, didn't even straighten the wheel. My boots hit the driveway with purpose as I slammed the door shut and stormed toward the house, heart thudding against my ribs. A tall man in a navy blazer stood by the steps, clipboard in one hand, directing the movers with clipped instructions. When he turned, I nearly stopped breathing. Derek Porter. He blinked in disbelief. Camille? Of course. Of all the people who could have bought the house, it had to be him, my ex. The man I hadn't seen in nearly 5 years. My first love and the person who had quietly broken my heart when I needed him most. What are you doing here? He asked, brows knitting. I could ask you the same thing, I snapped, refusing to flinch. I bought this property, he said, confused. Your brother sold it to me. I had no idea it was still part of an estate. My voice was sharp now. He had no right. The will requires both our signatures for any sale. Mine was never given. Derek's face paled. You're serious? I wish I wasn't. We stared at each other for a beat, the kind of heavy silence that's filled with 100 unsaid things. Regret. Confusion. Anger. Familiarity. But none of that mattered now. You need to stop the movers, I said. He looked back at the truck, then at me. For a moment I saw conflict flash behind his eyes, then resolve. He turned and shouted, hold everything. Stop unloading. The workers froze, boxes in hand. A long breath escaped me. My pulse slowed just enough for me to think straight again. Derek turned back, voice softer. Eric showed me the deed. Probate papers. Said it was all cleared. He forged it, I cut in. The documents, the signatures. All of it. His jaw clenched. Then this is a disaster. I crossed my arms, holding back the wave of anger still threatening to spill. You didn't know, I get it. But now you do. And you need to undo this. I'll call my lawyer, he said. Immediately. And for the first time in days, I felt something close to hope. The will spells it out clearly, I said, holding up the photo of the clause Margot had sent me. Both heirs have to give written consent before any sale. Eric never even asked me. That signature on the agreement? It's just his. Derek let out a slow breath and raked a hand through his hair. Then the sale's not valid. Correct. He looked down at the porch, shame flickering across his face. Camille, I didn't know. I swear. If I had. I cut him off, crossing my arms to keep from shaking. I'm not here to dissect your buyer's remorse. This isn't about you. It's about the fact that Eric tried to erase me from my own inheritance. From my own history. Derek nodded slowly. Then, with a gesture toward the house, he asked, can we talk inside? I hesitated. The porch swing was still there, creaking faintly in the wind. So was the wind chime Mom had bought at a summer flea market when I was 12. It jingled just the way it always had, soft, melodic, like a whisper from another time. This was still my home. At least half of it. And I wasn't leaving. Fine, I said, walking up the steps first. The door groaned as I opened it, releasing the scent of lemon cleaner and fresh sawdust. The hall was cluttered with half-open boxes, but the bones of the place were untouched. Mom's faded floral wallpaper still framed the staircase. Her antique clock still ticked from the far corner of the living room, steady and stubborn. Her presence was everywhere, like perfume clinging to fabric long after the wearer is gone. Derek followed me into the kitchen and sat down at the familiar table, the same one where Mom used to serve blueberry pancakes on snow days. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat slowly, reluctantly. I get why you're furious, he said. You have every right to be. But I want you to know I didn't do this maliciously. I believed Eric. I'm not blaming you, I replied. Not entirely. But Eric knew exactly what he was doing. Derek's brow creased. He told me things. Said you didn't want the house. That you'd moved on. That you couldn't afford to keep it. I scoffed. Of course he did. He also said, Derek hesitated, that you hadn't been there for your mom when she got sick. That you were too busy with your job, your life. My jaw clenched so tightly I thought I might crack a molar. I was with her every Thursday night for the last year of her life. I brought her groceries. I helped her with her meds. I helped her shower when she couldn't stand. And Eric? Derek asked softly. He showed up twice. maybe 3 times. Always stayed 10 minutes tops. But when she died, suddenly he was the grieving son with his eyes on the property title. Derek stared at the table. Then I got played. There was silence. Then he added, there's something else. I didn't think much of it at first, but he was in a rush. Really pushing me to close fast. Said the money was already tied up in a new business venture. I narrowed my eyes. What venture? He shook his head. Didn't say. Just kept dodging the question. Seemed jittery. Didn't even want to go through a proper lawyer. Just had a friend draft the paperwork. I showed him the photo again. This clause makes everything void. Derek stared at it, then sighed. Well, there's your answer. Then do me a favor, I said, standing. Tell your movers to start repacking. He looked up at me and nodded. I'll call my attorney. You'll hear from me soon. As I turned to leave, I paused. Derek, why this house? Why now? He hesitated, then said, because it felt familiar. Like a place I used to know. And maybe. I thought if I came back, I'd find something I lost. I didn't reply. I just opened the door and stepped outside into the wind. The chimes followed me, soft, distant, like memory. I walked out of that house with my chest tight and fists clenched. The cold wind bit at my face, but I barely felt it. That night, sleep never came. I kept seeing the same images on repeat. Mom's house, my house, being gutted one box at a time. Derek's bewildered expression. Eric's smug half-smile. The betrayal lingered like smoke in every corner of my mind. By morning, my phone had already buzzed 6 times. All from Margot. She'd filed the legal injunction to freeze the sale. The paperwork is solid, her voicemail said. We have the will. We have your stake. The court will hold the transaction. Her confidence steadied me slightly. But something still gnawed at me. This wasn't just about recklessness or entitlement. What Derek had said yesterday, that Eric was rushing, desperate, nervous, it didn't sound like someone making a bad choice. It sounded like someone drowning. At noon, I drove back to his apartment. This time, he answered the door. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Wearing sweatpants and an old college hoodie, his hair was matted and sticking out like he'd been tugging at it all night. His eyes were bloodshot. You again, he muttered. Yes, I said flatly. Again. I really don't have time for this, Camille. Then make time. He stepped aside without another word. His place looked worse than before. Pizza crusts hardened in greasy boxes on the coffee table. A couple of Red Bull cans lay sideways on the floor. Unopened mail littered the counters like paper snow. I picked up a bill from the stack. 3 months overdue. Utility cut-off notice. I tossed it back down and met his eyes. So this is what Mom's house was for? To cover your mess. You think you know everything, he snapped, voice rising. I know enough. You forged documents. You lied to Derek. You tried to wipe me out of the only thing Mom left us. He collapsed into the couch, rubbing his face. You think this is just about greed? Isn't it? He looked up at me, something hollow in his expression. The business is falling apart. I blinked. What business? The investment group. The one I started with Caleb and Malik last year. I remembered Thanksgiving him bragging about high-yield real estate flips and passive income streams. He talked like a walking TED Talk, all buzzwords and bravado. It's unraveling, he muttered. We made some risky bets. Took on more debt than we could juggle. There's an audit coming. And if we don't produce liquidity fast, we're finished. I exhaled sharply. So you sold Mom's house, my house, without telling me. To keep your con afloat. It wasn't a con, he said sharply, standing. At least, not at first. I thought we were building something real. And now we're in a hole. A deep one. Carter's demanding his money back. He fronted us nearly $250,000 in unsecured funds. If I don't come up with that in 3 weeks, I lose everything. My reputation, my stake, everything. And you thought robbing your sister was the solution? He laughed bitterly. Don't act like you care about the house. You've got your shiny job, your penthouse view, your wine weekends with your friends. You left Ashford behind years ago. I felt that hit, but I didn't flinch. You could have asked for help, I said. Mom would have helped you. She's gone, he barked. And you? You always had everything. Her attention. Her approval. Now the house. I took a step back, voice quiet but firm. She tried Eric. With you. Again and again. You just never gave her the version of yourself she was hoping to see. His eyes flickered, something breaking behind them. Shame. Or fear. I stepped toward the door. This isn't over, I said. You're not just in debt. You're in trouble. His silence followed me down the hall. And I didn't look back. I'm the one drowning, Eric said, his voice cracking. I stared at him, my voice dropping to a whisper. You made your bed. You don't get to steal from the dead to fix your mistakes. Something flickered in his eyes, shame maybe? Or raw panic. You need to undo the sale, I said firmly. Tell Derek the truth. Return the money. I can't, he mumbled. What do you mean you can't? It's gone. My stomach turned. Gone where? Eric rubbed his face. Transferred. Wired to a holding account under Malik's name. He promised he'd flip it, double it in a week. But now he's not answering my calls. Not replying to texts. He's just gone. I took a step back, trying to process what he just said. You handed over our mother's house to a guy who's now ghosting you? He nodded slowly, defeated. I thought I was saving everything. No, Eric. You weren't thinking. You gambled with what didn't belong to you. My phone buzzed just then, cutting through the air like a warning bell. A message from Margot lit up the screen. Judge granted the injunction. Sale is frozen. Please come by the office ASAP. We need to talk. I looked back at Eric. This isn't over. That house is still mine. And now? You may be facing more than just bankruptcy. I turned to leave but paused at the door. Did Mom know? He didn't answer right away. Just as I touched the knob, I heard him whisper behind me, she found something. A letter or a document. I don't know what it said. She locked it up before I could see it. Where? In the house. I didn't say another word. I walked out and didn't look back. When I arrived at Margot's office, the energy was different. Focused. The receptionist nodded silently and I followed the quiet hum of tension down the hallway. Phones were ringing in low bursts. Paralegals shuffled by with urgent looks and stacks of folders. Something big was moving beneath the surface. Margot stood as soon as I entered her office. Camille, she said, closing the door behind me. The injunction is in place. No further legal action on the house can proceed, not until the court rules. Relief barely registered before she added, but there's something else we need to go over. She pulled a folder from her desk and slid it toward me. Inside were property documents, probate filings, and a few notary records. I started digging deeper into Eric's recent legal activities. And I found something strange. I leaned in. What? He filed a power of attorney document 3 weeks before your mother passed. My chest tightened. She was barely speaking at that point. Margot nodded. That's the issue. I compared her signature on this form to earlier documents. It's pristine. Identical. Too identical. You think he forged it? I think it's suspicious enough to investigate. If he used this to authorize financial decisions, like transferring assets or selling the house, it could be criminal. Anger surged inside me, sharp and sudden. Do we have proof? Not yet, Margot said, her tone measured. But there's one more piece. When your mother was admitted to hospice, the nurse recorded that she brought a small black metal box. It was noted in her intake inventory. So, when I requested the discharge inventory from hospice records, the box was missing. I looked up. Missing. Margot nodded. No explanation. No record of where it went. Just gone. My heart pounded louder now. Eric said Mom locked something away. A letter. A document. Maybe this box is where she hid it. Exactly, Margot said. And if he didn't get to it before she passed, it might still be in the house. My mother had always been meticulous, secretive when she needed to be. If she suspected Eric was up to something, she wouldn't have just confronted him. She would have left a trail. And now it was time to follow it. Vanished, Margot repeated, her voice tight. No explanation. No record of where it went. I stared at her, my pulse pounding. Do you think the box is still in the house? If Eric didn't know about it, or couldn't find it in time, then yes. It very well could be. We left the office 20 minutes later. The sky had darkened, clouds gathering over Ashford like something was about to break open. As we pulled up to Maple Ridge Road, I spotted Derek already on the porch, phone in hand, pacing. When he saw us, he nodded. Movers haven't been back. Everything's still quiet. Good, I said, stepping out of the car. Let's keep it that way. The three of us walked through the familiar entryway. The scent of lemon cleaner still clung to the air, mixing with the faint smell of sawdust and something older. Dust, memory, time. We passed the staircase and into the sunroom. It was still just how I remembered it. Light filtering through sheer curtains, Mom's favorite dusty rose armchair angled toward the windows, the little wooden side table she never let anyone move. This had always been her sanctuary, her one untouched corner of peace. She spent most of her afternoons in here, I murmured. Tea, puzzles, and that huge stack of mystery novels she swore she'd reread. Margot looked around, then pointed. Check the desk. The old wooden secretary desk stood by the far wall, covered in knickknacks and paperweights. I'd gone through it after she died, but gently. I wasn't searching then, I was grieving. Now I was hunting. I crouched and began pulling at the drawers. The second one stuck like it always had since we were kids. I tugged harder. This time something shifted behind it. My fingers scraped along the back panel until they hit something solid, metal, cold and rectangular. Derek, I called. Give me a hand. He knelt beside me and together we eased the drawer out, revealing a thin, unstained wooden panel wedged into the back. It wasn't nailed down, just pressed tightly in place. We pried it free. Behind it sat a black metal box, scuffed at the corners, coated in dust but perfectly intact. No lock? Margot asked. I turned it over. Nope. The latch clicked softly as I opened the lid. Inside, everything was carefully arranged, like it had been packed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Folded documents, a couple of USB drives, and an old flip phone, the kind you only saw in crime shows or nostalgia posts now. Derek let out a low whistle. Someone went out of their way to hide this. I reached in and unfolded the papers first. Account statements, wire transfers, names I didn't recognize at first: Caleb Stroud, Malik Idris, and Eric's again and again. His name linked to unauthorized withdrawals, overseas transfers, payments from accounts that didn't belong to him. She was tracking him, I whispered. She knew he was stealing from her. Margot leaned over my shoulder, scanning quickly. And here, she had a joint account. Eric used it to funnel money into an offshore LLC. It's in his name. This isn't just betrayal. It's financial fraud. Derek picked up the phone and pressed the power button. To my shock, it blinked to life. There's a voicemail, he said, frowning at the tiny screen. Dated 3 days before she passed. He played it. Camille. If you ever find this, I hope you'll forgive me. I wanted to believe your brother would do the right thing. But I was wrong. I tried to protect what matters, but I think I'm running out of time. Don't trust what they tell you. Follow the money. And whatever you do, don't let them sell this house. The air in the room froze. No letters. No final message on paper. But she'd still tried to warn me. Margot reached for one of the USB drives and slid it into her laptop bag. What's on that? I asked, barely above a whisper. She opened her laptop and plugged it in. Let's find out. Margot's brow furrowed as she scrolled through the contents of the USB. Her eyes darted across the screen, then stopped suddenly. Holy hell, she murmured. These are audio recordings. Dozens of them. Phone calls between Eric and someone named Malik. They were getting the house appraised behind your back, planning the sale weeks before your mother even passed. The words hit me like ice water. My knees buckled slightly, and Derek instinctively reached out to steady me. She knew, I whispered. She knew what he was doing. Margot nodded grimly. And now you have proof. She turned the laptop toward me. The file folder was labeled Calls and Workings from Malik. Timestamps. Dates. Dozens of entries. She clicked on one. A voice Eric's filled the room. We need to close before probate. Camille's working full-time. She won't notice until it's done. Just get the documents drawn up. I'll handle the rest. Another file. Once the wire lands in Malik's holding account, we're clear. Just make sure she doesn't find the safe. Mom kept everything. If she sees it, we're screwed. I looked at Margot. He was trying to erase me. Bury everything before I even had time to grieve. Margot's voice was steady but urgent. Camille, your brother is going to prison. But if he realizes we've found this box, if he knows how much we've uncovered, he may try to make everything disappear. She closed the laptop with a decisive snap. We need to move. Tonight. I'm taking the documents and all digital copies back to my office immediately. I'll upload them to cloud storage, password protected. But you need to be careful. If Eric catches wind of this, Derek shifted his weight beside me, jaw tight. You think he'd really try something? Margot didn't hesitate. He's already forged signatures, committed financial fraud, and used your mother's estate to prop up a fake investment scheme. If he knows we've got him cornered, he won't just walk away. I stared at the USB still plugged into her laptop, the folder glowing like a fuse about to ignite. Before I could answer, the room lit up, headlights cutting through the front windows. Then a car door slammed. Then another. Footsteps crunched the gravel outside. Derek moved quickly to the curtain, peeking through a gap in the fabric. It's Eric, he said. My heart raced. Is he alone? Derek squinted, then cursed under his breath. No. Someone's with him. Older guy. Expensive coat. Must be Malik. From the files, Margot said. She grabbed the metal box and stuffed it into her tote bag. You need to stall them. I'll slip out through the garden and drive straight to my office. Keep them talking 5 minutes. That's all I need. I nodded, pulse thudding in my ears. Derek gave a quick nod too. Margot disappeared through the back door just as the front swung open, without so much as a knock. Eric walked in like he still owned the place. Malik followed, lean and sharp-eyed, a stainless steel watch flashing on his wrist. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The confidence radiating off him was enough to raise every red flag I had. Eric's eyes locked onto mine. No fake charm this time. Just fury. You've been snooping, he snapped. You've been stealing, I replied coolly. This isn't your concern. It's exactly my concern, I said, standing firm. This house. The estate. The truth. Malik finally spoke, his voice calm and condescending. Miss Hartley, interfering with a legal transaction. There is no legal transaction, I cut in. The sale's been frozen. The court knows everything. Eric paled. Derek stepped forward. I suggest you leave. But I wasn't done. We know about the fake appraisals, the transfers, the offshore account. And if you're wondering, yes, we have recordings. For the first time, Malik's face changed. His jaw tightened. Eric opened his mouth but no words came. And that's when I knew they were finished. You've been digging where you shouldn't, Eric snapped, his voice taut with fury. You had no right. Funny, I said, standing straighter. That's exactly what I was about to say to you. He stepped forward, shoulders squared. Where is it? Where's what? I asked, feigning innocence. His jaw clenched. The documents. The recordings. Whatever she left behind. Malik stepped in then, voice smooth and rehearsed. You're obstructing a legal process, Miss Hartley. Interference at this stage could land you in serious legal trouble. I let out a single cold laugh. You're talking to the actual legal heir of this property. You don't scare me. Derek moved between us slightly, his posture protective. You've made your position clear. You need to leave. Malik ignored him. Camille, he said, softening his tone like I was a naive child. This doesn't have to become a spectacle. Eric told me you were sentimental about the house, sure, but not irrational. We can still make this right. I tilted my head. Oh, I'm sure you'd love that. His eyes narrowed just as I pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen and held it up. I've seen the wire transfers. The unregistered LLCs. The call logs between you and Eric. I watched Malik's confidence drain molecule by molecule. Eric's face went pale. You. What? I know everything, I said calmly. And so does my lawyer. She's meeting with the district attorney as we speak. For the first time since walking in, Eric's anger cracked into panic. You don't understand what you're doing. No, I said. I understand perfectly. You stole from our mother. You tried to erase me. You committed fraud. And now you're going to be held accountable. Malik grabbed Eric's arm tightly. We're leaving. Now. Eric hesitated. His eyes flicked back to me, filled with something that looked like regret but soured quickly into resentment. You could have just let it go, he said, quieter now. You could have just asked for help, I replied. The door slammed behind them like a final punctuation mark. Moments later, my phone vibrated. A message from Margot. Files secured. En route to DA's office. You did exactly what you needed to. Derek let out a long breath and sank into the armchair across from me. Do you think they'll come back? I shook my head. Not after what they just heard. They'll be too busy scrambling for cover. We sat there in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that feels earned, not empty. The house, once heavy with memories and fear, suddenly felt lighter. Less haunted. More mine. I looked at the faded armchair beside me, the one my mother used to curl into every afternoon, and lowered myself into it. Derek sat down beside me. You all right? I will be, I said softly. But there's one more thing I need to do. The call came at 8:03 the next morning. Just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee. Camille, this is District Attorney Natalia Chun. We've issued the arrest warrants. Eric Hartley and Malik Idris will be picked up today. I froze, coffee halfway to my lips. That's good, I said slowly, breath catching. Thank you. There's more, she added. Our team recovered additional files from Mr. Idris' office during an early morning search. You'll want to come down. There's a deeper layer here. An hour later, I sat across from her in a small, sterile conference room deep inside the courthouse. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Natalia placed a thick manila folder in front of me. This, she said, sliding it across the table, changes everything. Natalia slid a thick manila folder across the table toward me. These were found in a locked cabinet at Malik's downtown office, she said. He went to impressive lengths to bury this trail. Offshore transfers, forged property records, fake shell companies. But this, she tapped the cover. This one ties it all back to your mother's estate. I opened it slowly, bracing myself. The first page alone made my stomach twist. A contract cleanly formatted, dated 2 months before Mom passed. It transferred full ownership of all estate assets, real and financial, to a company named Ashwell Green Limited. I've never heard of this company, I murmured. Natalia nodded. You wouldn't have. It doesn't actually exist. It was fabricated by Malik and your brother. A ghost corporation. But this document, it looks official. Signed, notarized. It does, she agreed. But we verified the notary seal. The person listed as having witnessed your mother's signature died 3 years ago. I felt cold all over. They forged an entire contract, just to override the will. Exactly, Natalia said. Your mother must have suspected something. That's likely why she began documenting everything. Why she created a paper trail. Why she recorded that voicemail. And why she hid it all in that box, I added. Natalia offered me a small smile. She left you the tools. And you found them. You followed the trail exactly like she hoped someone would. I couldn't speak for a moment. I just clutched the folder tightly and nodded. When I stepped out of the DA's office, the city felt sharper, more awake. Like every detail, the crack in the sidewalk, the smell of roasted chestnuts from a nearby cart, had snapped into high definition. I walked through Ashford's historic district with the folder tucked under my arm, as if carrying proof not just of my brother's betrayal, but of my mother's trust. That afternoon, I returned to the house. My house. Margot had already filed the documents to reinstate the title. The judge had ruled the transaction null and void earlier that morning. It was officially mine again. Derek had come by to help move a few of the remaining boxes out of the sunroom. He left a note on the counter offering to patch up the cracked plaster in the hallway whenever I was ready. Jason had withdrawn from the sale without resentment. In fact, he'd left behind a set of antique brass keys and a short message. This place always belonged to you. Let me know if you need a hand. I stood in the sunlit room and ran my fingers along the edge of the old secretary desk. The drawer was empty now. The secrets it had held were out in the open. But the smell of the room hadn't changed: lavender, old books, and lemon polish. She hadn't just left memories behind. She left me a legacy. Quiet. Intentional. Unshakable. A knock on the door broke my reverie. Riley stood there, Eric's ex-girlfriend. We hadn't spoken in years. I heard what happened, she said softly, eyes wide. Eric called me last night. He sounded hollow. He should be, I replied. She hesitated. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I always thought this house should have been yours. Your mom trusted you. Everybody knew that. I nodded. Thank you. I also thought you should know Eric's taking a plea deal. He's cooperating. Apparently, Malik's been laundering money for years. Your case helped crack it open. I didn't say anything at first. Just stepped back and let her words settle. It hadn't just been about the house. It never was. So it hadn't just been about the house. It never was. After Riley left, I walked through every room taking my time. The warped wooden staircase still groaned beneath my steps, like it was greeting an old friend. In the guest room, the same faded patchwork quilt Mom had sewn after Dad left still lay folded at the foot of the bed. Stitched with blues and golds, her quiet resilience in fabric. Upstairs, in the back of the hall closet, I found a small cardboard box. On the top, in her gentle handwriting, was a label. Camille for later. I carried it to the floor and opened it with trembling hands. Inside were photos, some of just her and me, some of Eric and me as kids, and one of the three of us long before things fractured. We were laughing in that picture. Genuinely. Tucked between two photo sleeves was a sticky note. If you're reading this, it means you stayed. Thank you for holding on to what matters. P.S. Even broken things can be beautiful again. I sat there on the hardwood floor and cried, not from grief, not even from anger anymore, but from release. From relief. From everything finally settling. The house wasn't a battleground now. It was a beginning. 3 months later, the estate was officially closed. Malik had been indicted on multiple federal charges. Eric had accepted a plea deal. 18 months in state prison and restitution. He didn't fight it. He and I spoke once, the day before he turned himself in. I don't expect forgiveness, he said, voice shaking. But I need to say I'm sorry. I'm not ready to forgive you, I told him. But I hope someday you become someone who deserves it. He nodded, eyes downcast, and left without asking for anything more. A few weeks after that, Derek showed up with a bouquet of sunflowers and a cappuccino from the little cafe I used to love on Main Street. You really staying here? He asked, setting the drink down. Yeah, I said, looking around. I think Mom wanted this place to feel like home again. And I owe her that. He smiled. You're stronger than you used to be. I shook my head gently. No. I'm just done being quiet. If you've made it this far, thank you. For walking through this storm with me. For listening. For witnessing the truth I nearly lost under layers of betrayal, silence, and forged signatures. This story wasn't just about a house. It was about what we choose to protect. And who we become when everything we trust begins to unravel. I want to hear from you. If you've ever felt dismissed by your own family. If you've ever had to stand your ground when it would have been easier to walk away. Share your story with me in the comments. Let's make space for one another. Because I know I'm not alone. And maybe you need to be reminded that you're not alone either. If you believe in standing up for what's right, even when it's messy. If you believe that truth matters more than keeping the peace, then let me know. Tell me what you would have done. Or what you did do when your moment came. And if you're facing something like this now, please listen to me. Keep the records. Ask the hard questions. Don't be afraid to say, I deserve to know the truth. Because silence doesn't protect you. It protects the ones who hope you'll stay quiet. My mother left me a message I almost didn't hear. Even broken things can be beautiful again. And she was right. This story didn't end in destruction. It began a new chapter. One where I get to decide what legacy means. One where I finally speak. So if this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, like, share and subscribe. Let's keep telling the stories they hoped would stay buried. And please drop a comment below. I'll be reading every one. Let's make some noise together.